Why is the Russian Mafia so feared in America? What insane things did the Russians manage to do in the 90s? And what's the situation like on Brighton Beach now? I'll tell you about the formation of the Russian Mafia, the most dangerous authorities, and the bright business that shook the world with its cunning. In the end, I'll tell you what place Russians hold in the criminal world today. Let's start from the beginning. In the mid-20th century, when the Soviet Union opened its borders to Jewish immigration, New York became the birthplace of something entirely new and unprecedented in the world: Russian Mafia. Among the many seeking a better life was Evsei Agron, a Leningrad native with a troubled past and certainly not an unblemished reputation. His previous activities in his homeland spanned a spectrum of crimes from theft to financial schemes, which earned him some status in criminal circles even before moving to the USA. This wave of immigration brought many to New York, primarily due to the lack of visa fees, making the city a desirable place for a fresh start. Southern Brooklyn, and specifically Brighton Beach, quickly became popular, earning the nickname Little Odessa due to the large number of immigrants from the USSR. It was there that Agron found fertile ground for creating a criminal empire, attracting fellow countrymen from amongst former Soviet prisoners like himself, who sought to start a new life but outside the law. Agron quickly managed to establish a hierarchy of fear and respect, making him and his associates truly elusive for law enforcement. The gang, estimated by the FBI to have around 500 members, engaged not only in extorting local businessmen, but also in organizing robberies, fraud, and even contract killings. The efficiency of their operations was so high that even seasoned members of the Italian Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, were impressed by their ruthlessness. However, the most memorable and indicative example of their cruelty was the case of a woman who decided to testify against one of the group's members. She and her child were killed with particular cruelty, dismembered, serving as a gruesome reminder to anyone who might consider cooperating with the police or the FBI. By the end of the 80s, the Russian Mafia had not only established itself in New York, but also began cooperating with one of the Italian-American Mafia families, the Colombo clan. Together, they developed complex tax evasion schemes, particularly related to wholesale gasoline trading. But appetites grew, and competition and envy only intensified. Guys were pulling off dark schemes with reselling gasoline and oil, and the numbers there were astronomical, hundreds of millions of dollars. By the way, the author of this scheme was Agron's advisor, David Bogatin, a retired officer. For a long time, he even managed to conceal from the boss the extensive scheme of machinations that brought colossal profits. However, when the truth was revealed, Agron, nicknamed Evsei Leningradsky, could not stay away from such a lucrative deal. But his attempt to get involved in profit distribution sparked a wave of attempts on his life. In 1984, Agron miraculously survived an attack that left him with serious injuries to the neck and face. But luck turned away from him in May of the following year when a hitman, waiting for him by the elevator, left him no chance of survival, firing 2 bullets straight into his head. At this decisive moment, Agron's bodyguard, who was supposed to ensure his safety for unclear reasons, disappeared, leaving his boss unprotected. The situation around Bogatin, the architect of most of the group's financial operations, escalated when he was forced to flee the USA, facing criminal prosecution. However, his past caught up with him in Poland, from where he was extradited back to the United States in the 90s. An interesting moment from Bogatin's life was once again highlighted by American media when it was revealed that in 1984 he purchased 5 apartments in the famous Trump Tower for $6 million. At that time, it was an incredible amount of money. In this deal, the future President Donald Trump personally participated. Expensive real estate purchases often served as a way for the Russian Mafia to legalize income. After Bogatin was declared wanted, authorities seized his property in Trump Tower, underscoring the seriousness of the intention to combat criminal capital. You might ask me, who stepped into his shoes? Marat Balagula, known in criminal circles as the Georgian, took on the role of the head of the Russian Mafia in the USA after the death of Evsei Agron. His path to power was marked by deepening ties with Italian Mafia families, particularly the Lucchese family, allowing him to expand criminal operations, including an extremely profitable scheme of tax evasion on fuel. When Vladimir Reznikov, another influential gangster from Brighton Beach, challenged Balagula, demanding a huge sum of money and a share in the business, it became a turning point. An incident at the Odessa nightclub where Reznikov threatened Balagula with a weapon ended with Balagula suffering a sudden heart attack and Reznikov being subsequently murdered on the orders of Balagula's Italian partners. However, Balagula couldn't enjoy his status as the king of the Russian Mafia for long. He got involved in a credit card scam that drew the attention of American authorities. To avoid arrest, he fled to South Africa, then to Sierra Leone, where he engaged in diamond trading. In 1989, he was arrested in Germany and extradited to the USA, where he was convicted on multiple charges. Released in 2004, he found that the world of the Russian Mafia had changed dramatically. Parallel to Balagula in the early 90s in the USA, Vyacheslav Ivankov became more active, better known as Little Japanese. Upon arriving in the States, he quickly rose to a high position in the Russian Mafia, engaging in various criminal activities including the oil business, gambling, trading in precious stones, and possibly drugs. Ivankov aimed to distance himself from the drug business, claiming it contradicted his principles. His stay in the USA was short-lived. After the FBI received information from the president of an investment company about extortion, Ivankov was arrested. His charges included extortion and arranging a fictitious marriage. After serving his sentence in 1977, Ivankov was deported to Russia, putting an end to his American chapter. Over the past 2 decades, several groups operating on the east coast of the United States have been identified by American authorities as part of the Russian Mafia. Among them was the so-called Brigade from Brighton Beach, led by Zinovy Bari, an immigrant from the Soviet Union. Starting with simple check thefts from mailboxes, the group eventually transitioned to more serious crimes including extortion, ecstasy trafficking, extortion, and other crimes targeting fellow countrymen entrepreneurs established in New York. The methods of the brigade were brutal. For example, in March 2003, Bari's henchmen attacked the Cyberplace internet cafe where they brutally beat one of the workers, mistaking him for the owner who refused to pay tribute. This attack, captured by surveillance cameras, prompted US law enforcement to increase pressure on the criminal group. As a result, criminal cases were initiated against 8 members of the gang, including Bari himself. But let me tell you what happened next. Not only Bari came under the authorities' scrutiny. After serving time, Alexei Skwetkov, known as Pellman, returned to criminal activity, leading a group in Brooklyn. The 2016 indictment included 26 counts, indicating numerous crimes from organizing gambling to drug trafficking. A particularly notable case was the arson of a competitor's building, which almost led to human casualties. In the end, Skwetkov was sentenced to 16.5 years in prison, and his accomplice, Leonid Gershman, received a similar sentence. But it only got worse from there. The arrest of Radjan Shilaya, known as Radjan from St. Petersburg, dealt a significant blow to the activities of the so-called Russian Mafia on the east coast of the USA. Prosecutors described him as a key figure in the criminal world of this region, charging Shilaya with offenses that emphasized his role in organizing and leading a wide range of criminal activities. Interestingly, little was known about Shilaya's life before his move to the USA. His criminal path began in St. Petersburg, where he was associated with one of the well-known thieves in law, Zakhar Kalashov, better known as Shakro Young. After receiving the title of thief in law in Cyprus in 2013, Shilaya soon moved to the USA, where he organized a criminal group of more than 30 people, mostly Georgians and Russians.
Ты знаешь, кто я? Я вор.
One of the group's most outstanding activities under Shilaya was fraud in the gambling business, including successful hacking of slot machines in casinos, allowing gang members to significantly increase their chances of winning. Although Shilaya was not known for direct involvement in murders, his methods did not exclude the use of violence to achieve goals. One episode considered in court included an attack on a billiard hall where members of a rival Armenian gang were present. Shilaya personally participated in this attack, demonstrating his readiness for brutality not only against opponents, but also towards his subordinates. Among the muscle of the group was a former boxing champion, Avtan Delkurtsidze, nicknamed Suicide for his combat qualities. One of the most unusual crimes of the group was the theft of about 5 tons of chocolate, highlighting the diversity of their criminal interests. The court that heard Chalaya's case sentenced him to 45 years in prison and ordered him to pay over $2 million in fines, dealing a significant blow to the activities of the Russian group. I'd like to separately tell you about the Bride's Syndicate. This ingenious plan of an organized criminal syndicate, which recruited young women from Russia as participants in sham marriages, was exposed, thanks to the investigation into the death of one of the girls. The scheme was surprisingly simple. Girls, tempted by promises of easy money, went to the USA as brides, entered into fake marriages, and then insured their lives for large sums. Upon returning to Russia, they falsified their debts, usually through staged car accidents, so that the grooms could collect insurance payouts. This ruse not only enriched the participants of the scheme, but also damaged insurance companies, remaining practically unnoticed due to well-organized document forgery and the appearance of legality throughout the process. The girls dying at home actually started a new life in other regions of Russia under new names with new documents. The entire plan began to unravel when investigators, probing the case of one of the deceased brides, questioned her relatives and acquaintances. This led them to the discovery of an international criminal syndicate involving a Caucasian criminal group that organized the entire scheme. The investigation also uncovered graves where the deceased girls were supposed to rest. However, exhumation revealed completely different bodies in the coffins, confirming suspicions of the existence of a parallel human trafficking scheme. The situation with one of the scheme's participants, known as Pranena, is particularly dramatic. A murder in Moscow, caused by a breach of previous agreements with another criminal group, served as evidence of how dangerous and unpredictable internal conflicts can be. A complex and extensive investigation conducted by detectives revealed the depth and breadth of a criminal network spanning 3 countries: Russia, Armenia, and the United States of America. It turned out that the manipulations with fake life insurance policies for brides were just the tip of the iceberg of criminal activity rooted in much broader spheres of crime. One of the main elements of the scheme involved insurance fraud with cars. Criminals used so-called ghost cars assembled from parts of different vehicles to simulate involvement in traffic accidents. These cars were prepared to create duplicates of real vehicles with counterfeit documents, allowing thieves to claim insurance payouts for allegedly crashed cars. Expert analysis showed that the cars involved in the accidents were actually cobbled together from miscellaneous parts and had nothing to do with the insured vehicles. Furthermore, the criminals devised a methodology for laundering income in Russia and avoiding tax payments in the USA related to the restaurant business. Women entered into fake marriages with members of the criminal group, then divorced in Russia through the court, officially claiming a portion of the property and business. Upon moving to the USA, they sued the former husband again, this time claiming a share of the business profits as alimony. The process allowed them to cash out significant sums of money under the guise of court-ordered payments. However, the scam began to unravel when one of the scheme's participants refused to share the proceeds with the criminals. After successfully divorcing one of the poor American businessmen and transferring her profits, she fled to Finland, attempting to blackmail her former accomplices and demanding an increase in her share. The response to her demands was an attempted murder carried out by a hired killer, which, however, was unsuccessful. Exchange of information between Finnish and Russian police led to the arrest of 3 key members of the Caucasian criminal group in Moscow. However, these individuals never made it to trial. One of them died of tuberculosis, and the other 2 were killed in pre-trial detention during a provoked brawl. But what's happening with the Russian Mafia today? It operates under a veil of secrecy, trying to avoid public attention and scrutiny from authorities, while their leaders and clan members outworldly behave like law-abiding citizens. Federico Verres, an expert on international organized crime from the University of Oxford, emphasizes that Russian Mafia groups now operate autonomously, while having a common treasury managed by a council of 12 individuals. These gatherings often take place in various parts of the world. James Finkenauer, author of the book Russian Mafia in America, notes that these structures do not resemble traditional mafia families like the Cosa Nostra. The Russian Mafia is organized more like a network involving people from various walks of life, particularly making it efficient and difficult to combat. Members of the Russian Mafia are known for their discipline and prefer to use financial machinations instead of open violence, further complicating the task of law enforcement agencies in identifying and curtailing their activities. In the USA, according to experts, the greatest danger comes from Latino and African American gangs such as MS-13, which number tens of thousands of members and are ready for open violence even against the police. However, Russian mafia groups like Italian ones have proven themselves to be talented organizers capable of gaining control over profitable business sectors, which is associated not only with financial losses for the economy, but also with the spread of corruption within the country. Paradoxically, according to the press, the former head of the Russian mafia in the USA, 70-year-old Boris Neifeld, who used to be Agron's bodyguard, is now forced to live on a modest allowance of $700. Neifeld, who has lost everything including time, family, and work, expresses his fatigue from life in the USA and desire to return home, despite having no regrets about his criminal past. As you can understand, Russians simply went underground and are now more involved in financial schemes, trying to avoid crude crimes. That's all for now. Subscribe to my channel and thank you for watching.